Good evening. By three methods we may learn wisdom. First by reflection, which is noblest. Second by imitation, which is easiest. And third by experience, which is the bitterest. Welcome to BMC News Live in English, brought to you by Al Hilal Hospital and Medical Centers. I am Vinod Narayanan, joining you with the daily news updates. Today's headlines. His Majesty the King received Egyptian President on arrival in Bahrain. Central Bank of Bahrain decided to stop bank loan deferrals. Special team set to probe workplace discrimination. Sehati health card to be rolled out soon. Saudi launched e-platform to issue cultural licenses. Turkey lifted its objections to Sweden and Finland joining NATO. Today's news in detail. His Majesty the King received Egyptian President on arrival in Bahrain. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa received yesterday President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Abdel Fattah El-Sisi, and his accompanying delegation on arrival in the Kingdom of Bahrain. The Egyptian President was also received upon arrival by His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Crown Prince and Prime Minister, and their Highnesses and Excellencies. He saluted senior officials from the Bahraini side. His Majesty the King also saluted members of the official delegation accompanying the President of Egypt. Then the convoy of His Majesty the King and the Kingdom's guest headed to Sakir Palace, where a group of students saluted the Egyptian President. The official reception protocols were held for the Egyptian President. The mission of honor was formed under the presidency of Foreign Minister Dr. Abdul Latif bin Rashid Al Zayani. Central Bank of Bahrain decided to stop bank loan deferrals. Bank loan installments will not be deferred beyond June 30th. The Central Bank of Bahrain has announced. MPs were quick to voice their concerns over the move and have urged the cabinet to urgently intervene to overturn the decision. Bahrain participated in NATO Food Security and Regional Stability Conference. Bahrain's ambassador to Italy, Dr. Nasser Mohammed Al-Balushi, participated in the NATO conference, the relevant alliance in a changing world, at the invitation of the president of the NATO Defense College Foundation, Alessandro Minuto Rizzo. The ambassador addressed food security and regional stability from a southern perspective in the third panel discussion on food security policies and the private sector. He highlighted the history of conflicts and political instability in the Middle East, in the North Africa, and their impact on sustainable development and food security in the region. Interior Minister met U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs. Interior Minister General Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa met the U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Political and Military Affairs and Acting Coordinator for the Bureau of Counter-Terrorism, Timothy Betts. Bahrain Ambassador to the United States, Sheikh Abdullah bin Rashid Al Khalifa, and Deputy Chief of Public Security, Major General Sheikh Hamad bin Mohammed Al Khalifa were present. The U.S. official highlighted its importance of developing the existing friendship between the two countries. He noted the continuation of the reinforcement of security, cooperation, and coordination and exchange of expertise between the two countries, especially in training programs in the latest equipment and technologies. Betts hailed the counter-terrorism efforts of Bahrain and the fight against all forms of terrorism support and financing. Deputy Chief of Public Security, Major General Sheikh Hamad bin Mohammed Al Khalifa, and U.S. Chief of Operations of Drug Enforcement Administration, Raymond Donovan, signed a Memorandum of Understanding to fight drug trafficking and money laundering crimes through exchanging information and reinforcing cooperation. Deputy Chief of Public Security, U.S. Chief of Operations of Drug Enforcement Administration signed Memorandum of Understanding. Sheikh Hamad said the Memorandum of Understanding contributes to the active exchange of information and the implementation of measures to fight drug trafficking, and lauded the level of security cooperation and coordination between the two friendly countries. The Memorandum of Understanding was signed as part of the official visit of Interior Minister Sheikh Rashid bin Abdullah Al Khalifa to the United States. Donovan highlighted the importance of the visit of Minister to reinforce cooperation in international counter-terrorism efforts. Sheikh Hamad emphasized the ministry's keenness to promote cooperation on combating drug trafficking and to consolidate the enforcement of laws addressing illicit drug in order to protect public health and safety. He highlighted that decades of cooperation, including related security information, training courses and conferences between Bahrain and the US. Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland Medical University of Bahrain hosted its 13th graduation ceremony. Under the patronage of His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, Lieutenant General Dr. Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, Chairman of the Supreme Council of Health, attended the 13th conferring ceremony of the Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland Medical University of Bahrain. The ceremony witnessed the graduation of 157 medical graduates and 61 graduates from the undergraduate and postgraduate nursing programs. Newly elected RCSI President Professor Laura Vianney expressed her gratitude and appreciation to His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister for his patronage for the conferring ceremony. Professor Vianney congratulated the graduates on their achievements and dedication throughout the years and praised the ongoing relationship and strong ties between RCSI and Bahrain. Speaker praised solid Bahrain-Egypt ties. Parliament Speaker Fawzia bint Abdullah Zainal hailed strong fraternal relations binding the Kingdom of Bahrain and the Republic of Egypt, led by His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa and President Abdel Fattah Al Sisi. She commended solid ties which contribute to heralding a new phase of active partnership, joint cooperation and coordinating regarding regional and international developments. The Speaker made the statement on the occasion of President Al Sisi's visit to the Kingdom of Bahrain, hailing common stances and unified vision, which contributed to further strengthening joint ties. The Speaker lauded the efforts of His Majesty King Hamad and President Al Sisi to maintain security and stability in the Gulf and Arab region, praising Egypt's unwavering stances in support of Bahrain. She valued efforts to expand cooperation between the government of both countries, led by His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa. Special team set to probe workplace discrimination. A special team has been set up to probe complaints of all types of discrimination in the workplace. The Labour Ministry announced yesterday individuals can now submit a complaint either in person at the Ministry's headquarters, on the phone through a dedicated email address, or via the Ministry's website. Bahraini ambassador in Berlin participates in 25th Arab-German Business Forum. The ambassador of the Kingdom of Bahrain in Berlin, Abdullah Abdul Latif Abdullah, affirmed Bahrain's keenness to enhance economic trade and investment relations and exchange experiences with the Federal Republic of Germany, in line with the comprehensive development process of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa. The ambassador expressed his pride in participating in a discussion session within the 25th Arab-German Business Forum, which coincides with the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. The number of senior officials also participated. Addressing the forum, the ambassador commended Bahrain's economic and social achievements in light of the development vision of His Majesty the King and the unlimited support of His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, Crown Prince and Prime Minister. The ambassador touched on the importance of enhancing trade and investment cooperation with the Federal Republic of Germany and benefiting from opportunities given the kingdom's business-friendly environment. Sehati Health Card to be rolled out soon. Every citizen and resident in Bahrain will receive a chip-enabled card containing their medical data, announced the Supreme Council of Health. The Golden Sehati Card, which will be rolled out nationwide gradually, aims to enable public health care records to be seamlessly transferred to private hospitals and clinics. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister presented the Prince Salman bin Hamad Medal for Medical Merit to editors-in-chiefs of local news outlets. The Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, today met with the editors-in-chief of local news outlets at Rifa Palace and presented them with Prince Salman bin Hamad Medal for Medical Merit in recognition of their prominent role in supporting the Kingdom's comprehensive COVID-19 response. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister noted that the royal order to present the Prince Salman bin Hamad Medical Merit to the kingdom's frontline professionals and supporting staff reflects His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa's appreciation of Team Bahrain's relentless efforts and honorable sacrifices made in combating the COVID-19 and preserving public health. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister emphasized the pivotal role of the kingdom's press in effectively raising awareness of measures to combat the COVID-19, which is an important part of the combined efforts of Team Bahrain to overcome the effects of the global pandemic and maintaining public health. His Royal Highness the Crown Prince and Prime Minister then presented the Prince Salman bin Hamad Medical Merit to the editors-in-chief of local news outlets and extended His Majesty the King's gratitude for their significant role in supporting the kingdom's comprehensive COVID-19 response. Oil and Environment Minister participated in second UN Ocean Conference. Oil and Environment Minister and Special Envoy for Climate Affairs, Dr. Mohammed bin Mubarak bin Daina, has asserted that the kingdom's accession to the High Ambition Coalition for Nature and People reflects its keenness to sustain and preserve marine wealth and water resources. The move is in implementation of the visions of His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa, the support of His Royal Highness Prince Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, and the follow-up of His Majesty the King's personal representative and President of the Supreme Council for Environment, His Highness Sheikh Abdullah bin Hamad Al Khalifa, he said. The minister was speaking while participating in the 2022 United Nations Conference to support the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 14, conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas and marine resources for sustainable development, which kicked off here on June 27th and will run until July 1st. Industry Ministry and National Space Science Authority signed memo. The Ministry of Industry and Commerce and the National Space Science Authority signed a Memorandum of Understanding to boost cooperation, exchange expertise and build capabilities based on the strategy of the industry sector 2022-2026. The memo was signed by Ministry of Industry and Commerce Under Secretary Ayman Ahmed Al-Dosri and NSSA Chief Executive Dr. Muhammad Ibrahim Al-Asiri in the presence of the task force in charge of implementing the provisions of the memo and a number of officials from both sides. Today's COVID updates. COVID updates brought to you by Al Hilal Hospital and Medical Centers. Now we will be back after a very short break.
All your favorite products under one roof in Bahrain at 27-year-old Megamart and Macromart. Bakery, fresh meat and fish, fruits and vegetables, sweets and snacks, ready-to-eat foods, dairy products, grocery or consumer goods. Megamart and Macromart, full of goodness.
Welcome back. UAE President meets Indian Prime Minister. UAE President His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan has today held talks with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. UAE news agency said that the two leaders had discussed bilateral relations within the strategic cooperation and economic partnership between the two countries. Saudi launched e-platform to issue cultural licenses. The Cultural Ministry announced on Tuesday the launch of a unified e-platform to issue cultural licenses and permits. The ministry pointed out that the cultural licenses platform enables establishments and talented Saudi citizens and also the residents and practitioners to issue licenses, permits and cultural services that support them to practice their work in professional ways and according to clear procedures in cultural activities in Saudi Arabia. The authorities affiliated to the Ministry of Culture have provided several licenses, with the Heritage Authority providing 2 licenses, which are Craft Practitioner License, which enables citizens practicing craft activities to work in and sell handicrafts. Selling Traditional Handicraft Products License, which enables the licensees to enter the labor market to see his products. Saudis may soon have visa-free entry to Schengen countries. A meeting of the Group on Technical Dialogue between Saudi Arabia and the European Union discussed here on Monday the necessary procedures to facilitate the entry of Saudi citizens to the Schengen countries without obtaining a prior visa. The 2 sides agreed to work to complete the technical aspects pertaining to it. In the meeting, the Saudi side was chaired by Ambassador Tamim Al-Dosri, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Consular Affairs, while the European Union side was headed by Dimitri Gyakos, Head of Legal Affairs at the Directorate General of Home Affairs. At the European Commission, the officials reviewed bilateral relations between Saudi Arabia and the EU and the ways to further strengthen them. They also stressed their desire to deepen cooperation and consultation to serve the common interests between the Kingdom and the European Union countries. The meeting was attended by Ambassador Saad Al-Arifi, Head of the Saudi Mission to European Union, Patrick Simonet, European Union Ambassador to the Kingdom, and a number of officials from both sides. Saudi suspended 48 government employees on several charges. Saudi Arabia's Oversight and Anti-Corruption Authority announced that it had investigated 171 government employees, while 48 of them were arrested in accordance with the law of criminal procedure. Nasaha's announcement came according to its indication that it initiated a number of criminal and administrative cases during the month of Dhul Qa'dah 1443 AH. The authority said that it carried out 4,672 monitoring rounds, and this resulted in the investigation of a number of defendants and the arrest of some of them on several charges, which are abuse of power, bribery, money laundering, and forgery. It is worth mentioning that during the arrest process, Nasaha has found out that the arrested persons belong to several ministries, namely Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Municipal and Rural Affairs and Housing, in addition to the Zakat, Tax and Customs Authority. The Commission also indicated that some of the arrested were released after investigation. Turkey lifted its objections to Sweden and Finland joining NATO. Turkey has agreed to lift its opposition to Sweden and Finland joining NATO, ending an impasse that had clouded a leaders' summit opening in Madrid amid Europe's worst security crisis in decades, triggered by the war in Ukraine. After urgent top-level talks with the leaders of the 3 countries, Alliance Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said that we now have an agreement that paves the way for Finland and Sweden to join NATO. He called it a historic decision. Sweden and Finland have abandoned their long-held non-aligned status and applied to join NATO. Under NATO treaties, an attack on any member would be considered an attack against all and trigger a military response by the entire alliance. NATO operates by consensus, and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan had threatened to block the Nordic pair, insisting they change their stance on Kurdish rebel groups that Turkey considers terrorists. Associated Press reported, for the first time, the leaders of Japan, Australia, South Korea and New Zealand are attending the summit as guests. US FDA advisors recommend inclusion of Omicron component for COVID boosters. Advisors to the US Food and Drug Administration have overwhelmingly recommended the inclusion of an Omicron component for COVID-19 booster vaccines in the fall. The panel of advisors voted 19-2 in favor of the recommendation, Associated Press reported. With that, we come to the end of today's news. Stay tuned for daily news updates in BMC News Live English at 7:30 p.m. every day. I am Vinod Narayan signing off from BMC News Live. Good night.